Starting with our daily liturgy. In my heart, I take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. May I liberate suffering beings and bring them to great joy. May the compassionate spirit of love grow within me, that I may actualize the great way. In my heart, I take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. May I liberate suffering beings and bring them to great joy. May the compassionate spirit of love grow within me, that I may actualize the great way. In my heart, I take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. May I liberate suffering beings and bring them to great joy. May the compassionate spirit of love grow within me, that I may actualize the great way. I give thanks for the guidance of my teachers, for the lineage of teachers before them. I give thanks and offerings for their devoted practice of generosity, moral discipline, patience, joyful effort, concentration, wisdom, skillful means, unshakable vow, spiritual powers, and awakened awareness for my benefit. May their years of life be lengthened, and may their vows be completely realized. I bow down in body, speech, and mind. I offer the best I have to give, both real and imagined, to fill the space between us. I regret and purify all transgressions. I rejoice in all virtues. I request you to remain until total enlightenment. I request wise and compassionate guidance. I dedicate my merit for the sake of all beings. May all sentient beings be freed from obsession and hatred. Being close to some and distant from others, how wonderful it would be. May this be accomplished. I will free them from obsession and hatred. Bless me to accomplish this. May all sentient beings enjoy happiness and the causes of happiness. How wonderful it would be. May this be accomplished. I will bring them happiness and the causes of happiness. Bless me to accomplish this. May all sentient beings have the joy that has never known suffering. May they be free from obsession, hatred, jealousy, miserliness, doubt, pride, wrong view, ignorance, and dualistic thoughts. How wonderful it would be. May this be accomplished. I will bring them to this state. Bless me to accomplish this. Great Prajna Paramita Heart Sutra. Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, practicing deep Prajna Paramita, clearly saw that all five skandhas are empty, transforming all suffering and distress. Shariputra, form is no other than emptiness, emptiness no other than form. Form is exactly emptiness, emptiness exactly form. Sensation, perception, mental reaction, consciousness are also like this. Shariputra, all things are essentially empty, not born, not destroyed, not stained, not pure, without loss, without gain. Therefore, in emptiness, there is no form, no sensation, perception, mental reaction, consciousness, no eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind, no color, sound, smell, taste, touch, object of thought, no seeing, and so on to no thinking, no ignorance, and also no ending of ignorance, and so on to no old age and death, and also no ending of old age and death, no suffering, cause of suffering, cessation, path, no wisdom, and no attainment. Since there is nothing to attain, the Bodhisattva lives by Prajna Paramita, with no hindrance in the mind, no hindrance and therefore no fear, far beyond delusive thinking, right here is nirvana. All Buddhas of past, present, and future live by Prajna Paramita, attaining Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Therefore know that Prajna Paramita is the great sacred mantra, the great vivid mantra, the unsurpassed mantra, the supreme mantra, which completely removes all suffering. This is truth, not mere formality. Therefore, set forth this paramita mantra. Set forth this mantra and proclaim Gate Gate Paragate Parsamgate Bodhisvaha. Gate Gate Paragate Parsamgate Bodhisvaha. Gate Gate Paragate Parsamgate Bodhisvaha. Infinite realms of light and dark convey the Buddha mind. All that is and we ourselves come forth in perfect harmony. We offer this sincere and devoted practice for the many beings of the 6 worlds, and dedicated in grateful thanks to the strength and sound practice of the great Heartland Sangha and its teachers. May our virtuous actions be clear from all interferences, and may our vows be fully realized.
Okay, thank you, Setcho. Ankan, thank you very much for helping with that. That's beautiful. It's nice to see your little cubbyhole altar there. It's like you all fit right into it somehow. It's kind of nice. Yeah, and wow, let's see, we got lots of friends here. It's wonderful to see everybody joining in. It's so heartwarming to see your face, you know. Another moment we'll be able to give each other hugs again, but for now, we'll take advantage of this. So this is a workshop. This is a workshop that I expect that the teachings will be available to the public at some point. If it's reserved for members in this particular Zoom, my expectation is that these teachings will be made public at some point. We'll probably publish this asynchronously later. This is not being live streamed, just so you know that that's the part. This Ongo is really focused on wisdom, okay? Wisdom teachings are sort of the center post of the Ongo's topic, and I think it's well selected, if ironically selected. But this particular workshop, we had set aside originally, we were going to do a thing on dealing with the stress caused by the political situation. You know, I mean, back, if you can remember a lifetime or two ago when the most stressful thing going was the political debates, we thought that was stressful. And so we were going to work with that. But in the situation we find ourselves in now, obviously we've kind of recalibrated everything to address the current most stressful thing we can think of for most of us. And so we're going to cut this workshop into a couple of parts. The first part is going to deal with equanimity and mindfulness and how what it has to offer us in this COVID-19 world we find ourselves in. We're going to do that by presenting some teachings. I'll primarily be leading the boat on that end of the teaching. We'll break into some triad conversations, triads or quartets, and we can actually do that right here on Zoom. There will be breakout groups. We have technology wizards who can make these things happen. And you'll find yourself in a small group and be able to interact with each other and talk back and forth about the material. That'll be great. And then we'll come back together, and Do'on and I will do a mondo or interact with somebody from each triad and try to, you know, see what juicy coolness comes out of that. Then we'll take a little break, probably a little 10-minute fluids in, fluids out kind of break, whatever, bio break. And then the second half of the teaching shall focus on compassion and kindness in this training. And for that, Do'on will be primarily in the lead. And then we'll have a very special guided meditation by Shokai. Yes. And she's going to do a great job with it, I'm sure. It's going to be wonderful. And so she's been wanting for some years, actually, to have a chance to lead this meditation. And here it is. It'll be great. And then after that, if there's time, we'll probably end up just doing some question and answers about that. And that's our big plan. Okay, that's our big plan. So for this part, I recommend you actually might benefit by having some notes, a notepad or something to kind of catch some distinctions on. It's certainly not required. There's no, you know, I don't want to report on my Zafu in the morning or anything. There's no quiz, but it is something that you might want to actually jot a few key distinctions down. So when we think about the Dharma, when we think about the Eightfold Path, a very traditional way to kind of break down the Buddhist teaching is to say, well, okay, there's the Four Noble Truths. There is the reality of suffering and distress. There is a root cause to that suffering. This cause is identifiable and it is knowable. And there is a cure. There actually is something that we can do about the cause of this suffering. And in fact, what that treatment plan is the Eightfold Path, right? This is a classic way to describe these teachings. And the Eightfold Path really can be broken down into three kind of +1 components. You know, you've got centeredness and equanimity. You've got compassion or karuna. You know, centeredness would be samadhi if we're going Sanskrit here, you know, and then karuna, compassion, and then wisdom, prajna. And then the +1 is upaya. This is a skillful means. This is a creative way of engaging in the world as a bodhisattva. So the first part, equanimity, okay, there's a couple of components to this. The first component is realizing that it's very important that when we're in times of upheaval and times of distress, and when things are very disorienting and anxiety producing, that the first response really is that we must find acceptance with what is going on. This is a really critical point. Now, most of us who've been practicing in the Dharma, we should have a pretty serious leg up on this, and yet still it's an edge that we need to work on, okay? So the question of accepting what's happening, a lot of us right away want to rush to the solve or to fight against it or to deny that it's happening, and it's very confusing. This is a very, very confusing situation. You know, it's like if a big UFO were to like hover over Toledo right now and make a big laser, pew, pew, and shoot and blow up the downtown of Toledo, there's nothing ambiguous about it. It's weird, it's bizarre, it's a world-changing event, but there's no denying what just happened. Aliens came and shot down Toledo, the center of all places, you know, horrible fate. But this is actually confusing enough that part of the trauma of it, part of the difficulty out of it is trying to figure out what the hell's actually going on, right? Like what's actually reliable information, who actually knows what's going on, what am I supposed to do, how am I supposed to respond? This keeps escalating, okay, in the mind. It's like a mental fever, honestly, you know. So confusion, disorientation is actually nothing new, but we just got to own the fact that we're in a very pronounced moment with this kind of confusion. Now, I think as the weeks have rolled by, the consensus is coming clearer and medical professionals are being heard more, and it's all kind of making some more sense. But the first response actually needs to be to stop and to just accept the fact that this is confusing, this is disorienting, this is most unwelcome, this is scary. All the things that we experience and result in relationship to this, right? So acceptance. But this acceptance really can't happen if it's just in the realm of thought. If we just try to think accepting thoughts about this situation, it only goes so far, and frankly, it's not that far. It only goes so deep, and it's not that deep. We have to do better than to just sort of think that we accept we're in this situation. We actually have to embody this radical acceptance, and this is what Zazen does. When we take the posture of Zazen, we are able to accept reality as reality actually is. Okay, when we take the posture of Zazen, we are better able to accept reality as reality actually is. It is a physical embodiment of this radical acceptance. Now, those of us that are lucky enough to have encountered the Dharma and the teachings and the practice, we already have some experience with this radical acceptance of the moment. And it should be the case that when we sit in Zazen, even in the midst of the most confusing situation, the most stressful situation, that in this physical embodiment, we're able to actually be still and to stop restlessness and scurrying around and fighting against it and being sad about it and all the different emotions and all the different responses, and simply physically accept what is so. You know, maybe you're very concerned, and so you end up walking to the refrigerator, right? And then opening the refrigerator, and then num, 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 num. And then you go to the TV, and then you're clicking the show. Oh my God, what's happening? And then a little while later, you're walking back to the refrigerator, num, 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 num. And then you go back to the TV, and then you take a nap, and then you go to the fridge, and then you go to the TV, and on, this weird little hamster wheel of isolation suffering. Okay, so stop, just stop, actually stop and bow, okay? Stop and bow. Then we can actually respond with some dignity and some grace and some skillfulness. So this stopping has to do with Zazen, you see. So this, it's more important now than ever, perhaps before, for us in our living memories, many of us, to use the skill that we have to be able to get off the mental hamster wheel of suffering and just chill and actually just be still in the suffering. Now, this is not a new insight into Zazen. This is not a novel thing to say. I mean, this is as old as Zen itself is, right? I mean, for most of us, the idea of like a typical Kamakura era samurai had about a 50% chance on any given day of dying in battle. Like any given day, that was the data. And yet those folks found that Zazen gave them the ability to meet that moment, right? I can say from our own unwelcome experience, when our daughter had this diagnosis that brought us to the Cleveland, can you do something with them? Brought us to the Cleveland Clinic. Our pugs are still here and well, as you can tell. But you know, we found ourselves in the pediatric oncology ward, a very unwelcome place. I mean, not place we wanted to be, and yet our ability to be still and to be in Zazen, even in that environment, allowed us to be able to actually be there, you see. And this is the irony. In order to really be there and be in the situation and to be able to meet it well and skillfully, we need to be able to be still. We need to be able to embody stillness to be able to skillfully embody action, you see. So this crisis probably will pass, like every other crisis that ever has happened. They also have come and gone. Odds are very good this one will be the same as everything else. I'm not saying it'll be easy, far from it, but there will come a time when this is done. And I hope for us that we don't just sort of like forget about it and move on as quickly as possible back to the old hamster wheel, you know. Use this time to really let your Zazen nourish you. And you do that by very simply trusting the stillness, see. So in the posture of Zazen itself, in the ritual of having the altar and lighting the incense and doing all the things that we do, we empower ourselves to be still and to radically accept what is happening. Not so that we just kind of give up and become a victim, but so that when we get up off the cushion, we're able to act in a way that actually is useful and skillful, rather than just acting out of our uncritically examined reflexes, you see. Now, to be sure, the reflexes will reassert, the panic will reemerge, old habits, karmic force will probably reassert itself, And yet Zazen is always there to help us bring the compass back to north, okay? So the first point with equanimity is to realize that the samadhi, or the concentrated states of Zazen, are not an escape from anything. They're not hiding from anything. They're not copping out from anything. It's probably, in fact, I'll say it's the single most important thing we can do to enable ourselves then to be able to actually act skillfully in this world. Okay, so being able to stop, being able to bow is necessary to being able to skillfully respond. So the first part of equanimity is this stillness. And this is primary. It's absolutely essential. You must give yourself the gift of stillness and presence in this particular way of Zazen. Now, the next part of equanimity is what you could call active equanimity, okay? Still equanimity is just, okay, we'll say Zazen. Then we have working or functioning samadhi, functioning equanimity. Now here, we find a category of practice that has to do with mindfulness in action, okay? So now we move from the stop and the bow part into the response part, but equanimity is still there within the responding. Now, we've all here probably received teachings on basic mindfulness, you know, pay attention to what your experience is, be in the moment, make sure that your mind stays collected in the experience of the time. If you see that you're pulled into other things, see it, acknowledge it, let it go, and come back to the moment. We've heard these things over and over, but it's important to realize that the religious training that we all have in the Buddhist part of our Zen tradition is incredibly useful with this, particularly when we come on these new practices, okay? We all have new practices that have been assigned to us recently, right? My name is Rinsen, and my practice is washing my damn hands, right? That's my practice. So in an earlier time, you would come to Sesshin, perhaps, if you're lucky enough to come to Sesshin, and we have Oryoki. And so we have this very special and specific way of dealing with the Oryoki set and the bowls and the, you know, the chopstick and the spoon and all this squeegee thing, whatever that is. And you got to like do it all a special way. And why did we do that? We did that for right now. Like, this is why we did that. We did that now so you can wash your damn hands. But you wash your hands with the mind of Oryoki. You wash your hands with the mind of ritual, with the mind of practice, so that washing hands is not just this stupid thing you've got to deal with now because fear. No, now washing hands is your Dharma practice. You see, you have the practice of washing your hands. Does that make sense? So this is a beautiful thing. The specific way of washing the hands, of taking care of the hygiene and doing it correctly. Take the mind that you experienced in Sesshin, or visiting the temple and learning how to bow correctly and how to navigate the Zendo. The Zen training that you've had, you take that Zen training mind and you apply it to this new Dharma practice called wash your friggin' hands, okay? And while we do this, and this is just one example, okay, there's another kind of a training. It's called a mind training, or a Gatha, okay? Now it's interesting, Aitken Roshi, my Dharma, I guess, great-grandfather in the koan lineage, he is very famous for having put out, oh, where did it get to? Can I have the liturgy book there? He put out this collection of Gathas. And I'll just read you a few. These are in our old spiral-bound readings book. I'll just read a few. Here's a good one. Gathas for Daily Life. This is from Aitken Roshi's book, by the way, called The Dragon Who Never Sleeps, for those who may care, by Robert Aitken. The book is called The Dragon Who Never Sleeps. It's a collection of mind training Gathas like this. This is one. When I panic at losing my bearings, I vow with all beings to acknowledge the error is panic, not losing familiar ground. Right? Another one, sounding a bell at the temple. I vow with all beings to remember I'm ringing the Dharma for the Sangha of all who can hear. And on and on. There's a bunch of these, okay? Falling asleep at last is really good. I vow with all beings to enjoy the dark and stillness and rest in the vast unknown. There are many of these gathas that we can use. I'm going to suggest that we think together about what new practices we've all been given, right? The practice of washing hands. Here's a nice little gatha I penned earlier today. What do you think? As I wash my hands, I vow with all beings to cleanse both body and mind, that suffering may be relieved, right? As I wash my hands, I vow with all beings to cleanse both body and mind, that suffering may be relieved. So that could be a mind training, a gatha, that we associate with the practice of washing the hands, you see. Does that make sense? You can sing happy birthday. I guess Baby Shark has a theme too that people can use. But why not use a Dharma practice? You know, use it as a gatha and bring it into your religious vows. Now we've got a, as we say, or Secho, if you could put the video, I've got an example of the liturgy of washing of the hands. I would like everybody to just watch this, and maybe, as we say, if you can make the link available in the chat so people can refer to it later. Can we make that go? All right. I claim no, I don't endorse the soundtrack at all. But I think you can see where I'm going here. Okay, that's a liturgy. Okay, that's a ritual, right? So you go to the fountain and you don't just, oh God, I got to do this shit. Oh my God, get it over with. No, it's actually a Dharma practice now. You've formally been assigned it by a Zen master. You have no excuse now. It's a Dharma practice, okay? So you put the suds, you do the thing, you make it go, right? Make sure you learn the steps. And just the same way, you're Oroki, you don't just sit there and you just do whatever. You do the correct way, and you make your mind conform to the Sangha and to the practice. Then now you have this practice of washing the hands. Does that make sense, everybody? Okay, so I see a gasho if you understand what I'm saying. This is a strange format for me to teach in because I can't feel the feedback really. I mean, kind of, but not really. So that's helpful. So you take that Dharma practice and you, if you don't particularly love the Gatha I came up with, do one of your own. In fact, it's a great assignment, you know, think about what Gatha speaks in your key. I like this one. As I wash my hands, I vow with all beings to cleanse both body and mind, that suffering may be relieved. It works for me. Find one that works for you if that doesn't, or take that one as a gift. But do something to make it a conscious Dharma practice. Is this okay? Now, other practices we have. We all have the practice now of social distancing, right? So if you're lucky enough to live in a place where you can get outside, we do, like right outside the Embassy here, there's this beautiful metro park. So every day we take an hour walk together, you know, but we also make sure that we stay with that 6-foot distance from other people. And it's weird because why would I ever do that? You know what I mean? Like why, like it's so, it's just odd to do that. But actually now this is my practice. I need to make sure that I keep a correct and safe distance in case I have this flu, virus, whatever it is, and I don't want to give it to somebody, you know? So then we have a situation where we've got to keep a distance. So you can come up with a Gatha for this, you know, in keeping 6-foot distance and practice social distancing, may I realize the intimacy of all things. Something like this. And you make a mind training that fits that practice. And this changes it from just a health and safety thing, which everybody should be doing. This now makes it Dharma practice, you see. And the Bodhisattva is always motivated by the alleviation of suffering for all beings. This is always the Bodhisattva's heart. This is always the Bodhisattva's motivation. And so if we can tie the washing of hands, let's say, just to keep it to that one, and notice how in the little Gatha that I came up with, I combine that with a cleansing body and mind to alleviate suffering for all beings. And when you frame the practice in this way, then it becomes part of the Bodhisattva vow, part of the Bodhisattva expression, see? And this gives it a much different feeling to us, rather than being victims who are scared and have to just do what the doctors say and, oh my God, the end of the world. Look, bodhisattvas always practice in battlefield situations, okay? Life itself is the catastrophe. This is exactly home plate for the bodhisattva. And no matter what crazy shit's going on, the bodhisattva power is that they can be right in the center of it and be there for the benefit of all beings. So no matter what happens, this can be your practice, see? I hope it's not the case, but if I were to end up with this virus and be in one of those respirator things and be in the critical care, even in that space, I could make a practice of taking in the suffering of everyone in that hospital and all around the world, and taking it on and giving them peace, and practicing that way until I have no more breath. And then I would even take my corpse and allow that to be a teaching for others. So this mind is that no matter what happens, the bodhisattva vow can always be expressing and always be the motivation behind what we do. And this is completely in contrast to the deluded mind that always has the ego in the center of everything that happens. Now, the ironic thing is the action might be the same. The washing of the hands, the keeping the 6-foot distance, but the motivation of it is completely different. The intention is completely different. And therefore the karma of it is completely different, you see. So very, very important that you find a way to have the bodhisattva vow motivate these mindfulness practices, these active mindfulness practices. So I have made some notes, you know, the hand washing, the social distancing business, you know, think about, you know, I don't think I ever really thought much about going to the grocery store and getting stuff. Why would I even have to think about that? I live in America. It's not a strange thing to go to the grocery store. I'm grateful for that. But now it's like, okay, what is this going to be like? Oh my gosh, you know what I'm saying? We go and there, what are we going to find? It's a little scary now. It's at least different, right? So some kind of Gatha for on entering the grocery store. some kind of Gatha for, may I don't know, enter this grocery store and not hoard all the toilet paper. You know, may I shop responsibly for all beings? You know, we're all in this thing together here, you know? Does this make sense? So what we would like to do is move into some small group discussions. And what I would like you to discuss, make a few notes here, I'd like you to discuss what new Dharma practices have you received that Bodhisattva COVID-19 has given you? Okay. I mean, for some of us, just being home and being confined or isolated this way is a joy, easy, and something we're really used to and not a problem. For some of us, it's the hardest thing we've ever had to do, right? So think of, for yourself, COVID-19, what practices have you found yourself taking on? Maybe you need to be careful about how much media you consume. Like that could be a thing, right? So think about, okay, what are the new COVID-19 era Dharma practices? What areas could we think about bringing some mindfulness to and using these as mindfulness practice opportunities, and come up with a cool Gatha, you know, turning on the TV, trying to get information about what's going on. May I stay cool for the benefit of all beings. Tweak it, make it nice, make it pretty, but make it something that fits for you and the people that you're having conversation with together, okay? Ta-da! Ah, the return.
Well, everybody's coming back. This is so cool.
It's like in Star Wars when all the ships come in. Ah, the Rebel Alliance. The Rebel Alliance is pulling out of hyperspace.
This is very cool.
Yeah.
So we had 11 breakout rooms. So keep that in mind. There's 11 groups to.
That's a juicy number. That's a lot of folks.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Oh, can you not do that? Because it's so. Sorry. Are we on? I think
Yeah. Yeah. So we say, are you going to direct traffic for the little Demando thingy now?
I think Secho is going to do that.
Or Secho? Okay, yeah, somebody.
Yeah. Sorry, I was on mute there.
There you are.
Welcome back, everyone. We hope you had some delightful time together and authentic time. What we'd like to do now is call on each of the rooms. We've had 11 breakouts, and we're going to keep this to just a few short things that you heard from your group as you represent, and then interacting with the teachers. So we'll go to breakout room number 1 first.
Need another table here.
Here.
Who is the representative from breakout room number 1? As we say, you are muted.
I think we're going to need them to raise their hand.
Ah, there we go.
So if you go to the participants screen, you should see a way in your Zoom controls to open up participants and raise your hand. And then we'll see. And in this case, though, we've also got a message that Gyoshiki is the representative. So we will unmute Gyoshiki. Unmuted. Unmuting in progress. Unmuting not working.
Oh, no.
Okay, I think we've got it.
Okay. Hi, I can only see 4 people, but I know there's more, and because Rinsen's on the big screen, but just wanted to quickly say I'm a new member as of last month from Central Oregon, and I've been listening to your podcast for over 15 years or however long they've been. So I'm not a stranger. You're not a stranger to me, but I'm a stranger to most of you.
Wow.
Wow.
Welcome.
Thank you. So Keishan asked me to be the speaker. So our group, having never been to one of your deals, but some people said they were doing fine with being solitary and learning to be with what is and not planning ahead. Some were having a little more difficulty and trying not to get down on themselves for being that way. I was inspired to write Gathas, and I hope someone's collected some of your words on the Gathas. So everybody's having a different experience, but having watched the last thing you did, I'm not on Facebook, so I can't stream them live. I haven't figured out how, but I've watched everything you've done later. And it seems like to me, people are more settled than they were a week ago, just observing. I'm kind of watching too much news and getting off about that, but really delighted to have a new Sangha to interact with, since I'm a lone practitioner most of the time. I'm San Francisco Zen Center lineage. Ed Brown is my teacher, first teacher. I really liked this meeting thing and having the minute of Zazen in between. I thought that was really good for just to hear what everybody said, think what they said. That was really nice. And then I felt like Harry Potter kind of disapparating. It was kind of fun. How else can I speak for the group? It was nice to hear what people are going through and to be heard.
Yeah, well, so I mean, a few threads I can pull there, right? Thank you. So it is really important that we do everything we can to try to stay connected and to be in conversation with each other. I don't know if anybody else's experiences this, but my screen time has just gone through the roof. I mean, I am literally, it feels like I'm staring at a screen my whole life now, and it's not cool, but also in some ways it's necessary now to be able to reach out and connect. So how do we make the balance with that? It's important, to figure out. And another one of these balances, as I heard in your comments, is, the being in the moment and accepting what is so does not conflict at all with planning ahead and making moves that are skillful, right? So it's not like an either or, either I'm in the moment or I'm figuring out what I should be shopping for over the next 2 weeks. Those two can work perfectly fine together. In fact, the more we practice being in the moment and letting go and just trusting, then when it comes time to really plan and think about what are we going to be doing, it's actually easier and more effective to do that. So I'm glad you got a chance to interact. It's lovely to be able to hear your voice live again. And let's hear maybe some reflections from the next group.
So we're going to go to the representative from breakout group number 2. Please raise your hand and I will unmute you there. Let's see here. It looks like, oh, there we go, Jigen. And you are unmuted, Jigen.
Thank you. We couldn't remember if we were group 2 or group 3. So if I'm jumping in for group 2, maybe we just trade places. So we didn't quite, our group had a lot of really good conversation and connecting time. And we talked about the new practices. We didn't quite get to which gathas we would recommend. So the items that we are noticing that are new for us right now are remembering to cover our cough.
Yes. Oh, that's a great one. That's right.
Another one is caretaking practice when certain members of our family are taking this seriously and other members of our family might not. And we have an elderly family member that we as a group need to be taking care of.
Yeah. Okay.
Another one is having a fluid morning routine and not having quite as much structure or set times when things are supposed to happen. Another one is experiencing social anxiety. If you have a place that you do have to go to right now, being really fearful of getting sick.
Yeah.
And finally, someone shared anger at the government right now and how to wield that mindfully and in a productive way.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to be talking a little bit more of that about dealing with that anger at the government in the compassion piece, particularly. 'Cause
Yeah.
it's, yeah.
You know, what I think would be nice, you know, maybe we could start a Sangha Google Doc, and like have categories of these practices, you know, like covering the cough and the sneeze practice, the washing the hands practice, the new environment of grocery shopping practice. And as people come up with cool gathas, we can add them there. So maybe the Sangha can contribute and we can kind of see each other's thoughts about what some good verses might be. There's a lot of good high watt bulbs in the community. I'd like to hear what they have to say about it. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. It is strange to go into a store and just have anxiety about being around people. I mean, it really is. But now, you know, I'm not saying anxiety is the practice, but being aware of the distance, there's a healthy way to do that, and we need to take it up for the benefit of all beings.
Actually, I heard Governor Cuomo say something that was like, I was like, oh, he must be practicing the Dharma. He said, now we are physically distant, but spiritually close. Isn't that lovely? Physically distant and spiritually close.
Yeah. And actually, he was a little bit Zen because then he said, I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
I'm like, good, very good. Okay, so thank you, Jigen. And happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Jigen.
Coach was washing his hands.
Happy birthday to
That's a
you.
good one.
Nice. All right. Let's hear from the next group.
Eli, group 3.
Yeah. So wrote some stuff down. Our group was definitely concerned that we should be doing more, like feeling like we should be doing more to help the situation. And also like how we've been trying to consume media in a more responsible manner. Like I mentioned that I have to take my phone and like not even just put it someplace else in the apartment, shut it off, someplace else in the apartment for like an hour or two, and then like later go back, turn it back on, check, respond to everybody, do whatever, shut it back off, and like go about it like that. Otherwise I will just sit and stare at my phone for hours on end.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. I mean, I think that's something like that seems skillful to me because at once the phone is your source of connection with others and the source of anxiety and stress from media and posts and stuff. So it's this really strange, I mean, it's actually perfectly designed to hook us because you get the endorphins from connecting and you get the fear response from the media. And it's just like, it's intense. So actually, I think having some, you know, you might go so far. I mean, someone might find it useful to actually make a ritual, like time to engage with the phone and time to put the damn phone down, you know, like have a special little box on the altar that's for the phone, you know, and it's like, it's there, you honor your friends and your connection and your need to keep up with the latest tweet from whoever you follow or whatever. But now for the sake of all beings, I put this shit down, boom, you know, and put it on the altar, close the box, and then actually, you know, feel the pull of the beard wanting to go over there and check the phone again, and just don't, you know, learn how to, you know, oryoki means just the right amount, right? So what is the practice of oryoki with your phone? What does oryoki have to teach us about the media and the news? Because there is a right amount. It's not just fast from it and never have it and become a Luddite. I'm really grateful for the internet right now. We're able to do this. I'm able to video chat with my mom and at least give her a virtual kiss. You know, I mean, I'm grateful for it. I want to know what medical professionals have to say, but also it plays on my fear response, and it would have me just trade my life over to the stream of concern.
Yeah, and we also talked about like one of our members teaches guitar lessons, and them wanting to reach out and like provide a sense of normalcy and stability to their students, and just it's like, so we actually did come up with a mantra, sort of, dedicating the merit of our practice, dedicating the merit or practice, basically responsible virtual interpersonal connection for the sake of all beings. I wrote it down very weird, but that's, yeah.
Well, I think there's something in there that it's trying to tease out, and I think we should continue working on that. You know, I'm really liking this idea of some kind of a Sangha-wide Google Doc that everybody can edit and add to. I think we might come up with a really cool thing for each other there. Beautiful. Thank you.
Excellent.
Next.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Roshi. Okay. Next up, Lisette and Jussie, unmuted.
So I'll be the one detailing this. So our group mostly, we all kind of seem to center around some similar themes with our experiences in this time and with the way that we've been practicing. And all of our experiences seem to be surrounding our relationships to others. For instance, some of us still have to deal with people. Some of us still had to work. Some of us are cooped up in a house with our partners and family. And some of us don't have anyone. So we're all experiencing different versions of new relationship dynamics. And so those seem to be the things that are giving us inspiration for our practice. So we did write a Gatha based on our relationships to others, which is has some original lines, and then it has some pieces that we Frankenstein from the
That's cool. Let's hear it.
All right. So in the time of social distancing, being close to some and distant from others is an opportunity to generate love and compassion for all sentient beings. And may I bring them to great joy and safeguarding their health.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Yeah. Fantastic. Wisdom from the Sangha. Blessings. Let's hear from the next one. That's
All
great.
right. Next up, we have Jiho. Thank you, Jussie. Jiho is going to be unmuted, and sorry, I lost you there. There we go. All right, sorry. Jiho, you are unmuted.
Hello. Our group talked about each of their different experiences with being in this crazy new virtual world that we're in, and social distancing and the whole COVID-19 scenario. And the first one we talked about was how our relationships are different, especially with parenting and taking care of the elderly, and how there's just this loss of control now, and how it forces you to become a better person, a better parent. And they had this really beautiful saying that they would say to themselves when they were dealing with their loved ones. It's, may you be May your hearts be at ease. May you be well. May you be safe, and may you be loved. And they would just say that to themselves to set themselves at ease when dealing with the people in their lives and the situations. We also talked a little bit about self-care, how now it's being forced at home, how all of a sudden you're taking care of yourself in a different environment and trying to do that with all the stress of the media and the scenario of the COVID-19 adding to that, and our fears and anxiety kind of piling up. And the other one was dealing with a different work situation. And the work situation kind of led to where there was a lot more connectedness with different meetings that were being held. And I love that they had a guided meditation at work that was part of their practice. And I loved what they said about how they brought their practice into their work situations and their life during this time. Using all ingredients of life to practice the Dharma, touching the Dharma and having it touch me. And I just love that. And we just kind of talked in summary about how the routine of our lives is now different, but very similar. And that it's brought us to this place where our practice is deeper and we're more connected to each other. And we've really been helped by all the concrete examples that we've been getting through these workshops. The home retreat and the home practice and the hand washing and social distancing, and just these concepts are really vital to helping us get through this time. I have spoken.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jiho. That's really wonderful. I mean, it is we have a new confrontation with how little in control we are, but actually we've always been rather out of control, right? It's actually not new. It's just we have a stronger dose of unavoidability with it. You know, like now suddenly it's really obvious that I am of the nature to have ill health, and there's no way to escape having ill health. Like that's right up front now. It's not just a cute throwaway line at the beginning of service, right? So I think it's important for us all to honor the fact that our experience with the Dharma puts us in precisely the ideal place, because we've been used to dealing with uncertainty. We live within the mystery. We are able to trust in not knowing. I mean, if there's one central teaching in Zen, it's don't know, right? And so what a perfect teaching for this moment. You know, I don't know. Where is this going to go? I have no fucking idea where this is going to. I listen to medical experts that I feel have insight, and the best among them say that they don't know either. They have some things they can say with some degree of certainty, and I trust that. You know, I trust the not knowing. So rather than try to scramble to get control again, or rather scramble to put the facade of control back up intact, let it go. Just completely let it go. It wasn't there anyway. Now it's just obvious. So how do we be centered and present in the midst of not knowing, in the midst of not having it all figured out, right? Beautiful practice for everybody. I really do hope that this will be a catalyst to a great awakening for our culture. I feel that this is possible. But those of us who have the privilege of having encountered the Dharma before this hit, we need to do a really good job with our practice right now. Very important.
Group 6, Zenon and Kuryu.
We discussed a lot of the same things that have come up for other groups so far. We discussed, either now working from home or staying at home significantly more than we did before, to greater or lesser degrees. We also discussed, feelings of isolation, how to manage that. We talked a lot about our pets.
Nice.
And how they are interacting with us now that we're all home a lot more than we used to be, and such like that. So I think our discussions really, and our interactions with these elements in our practice now really reflect the same things that are coming up for everyone else. We did compose a Gatha to go with this that I think neatly sums up kind of all of how we felt as a collective group here.
Beautiful.
Placing our minds in the moment, we use this time to watch the squirrels for the benefit of all beings.
Wow, that's great. Woo! Ah, that's really good. I love it. That's fantastic.
I have spoken.
Yes, you have.
Next up, we're going to go with So-On. I'm not sure this is group 7, but So-On, you are unmuted.
We're actually group 8.
Okay, great. Go right ahead.
Okay. Let's see. We were talking about
touching your face.
Huh?
Touching your face. You know, that's a good one. That's actually a good one. You know, instead of going like this, go like, oh,
Oh, oh,
right.
ooh, okay.
Oh, just bring it back to a gasho every time. Oh, Gio.
When I'm able to not touch my face,
Just go like this, and when you see it, just bring it to a gasho. And we need a Gatha for that, guys. You know, how many times have you sat in zazen and not scratched the itch?
Yeah.
Right? Right? I mean, that's just part of zazen. There isn't anybody who sat any amount of zazen that didn't have an itch suddenly start tormenting you, you know? And if you can actually just let the itch be the itch and stay in the zazen, it's good, you know? I mean, how horrifying to watch someone up there, a public health official, say, it's very important that you don't touch your face when you're practicing. You know, we all know this is important. They have no idea what they're doing with their hands, you know, mindfulness of your hands. All right, so on, continue. I'm sorry. You gave me a great opening there.
that's okay. I'm learning how to be a straight man. So, so our group, I was in a group with a couple ladies that are long distance members. And one of them, Sebi, almost made it to session this time. And another one lives sort of near us on an island. And she's a new member and once the house became the temple. So we were talking about how to connect with others. And like when we're stuck at home doing social distancing, how do you connect? And
So audio is pretty broken up.
is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, in that case,
Get closer.
Try one more time.
let's try one more time. How about this?
Yeah.
Is this working better?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I'll just conclude with our Gatha. We actually did write a Gatha, and our Gatha is: when unable to connect with others directly, for the sake of all beings, I vow to reach out through other means. I've spoken.
That's beautiful. You know, and the other side of this is that, you know, one side, we are necessarily in social distance from each other, right? Physical distance from each other. But the other side of this is that we are inseparably one. We're so much one that there is not two, and there's no way to be separate. It's not possible at all, right? So honoring the reality of non-separation, I practice social distancing. You know, honoring the reality of no separation, of non-separation. I take up the practice of social distancing, that suffering may be relieved, something like this. Because, see, spiritually, we have the other side of the coin, right? We understand no self. And my no self, and Do'on's no self, and your no self is the same exact no self. Absolutely the same. There's no way to be separate or disconnected. That's also true.
Thank you, Do'on. Next up is Fuzen. Fuzen, you are unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So my group was pretty surprised at the places that we could find ritual. We did our shares and then we went back and realized we skipped over all the important places. So Sister Suzette spends a lot of time in her den doing a lot of work with people. And I was like, man, you already have that space set up and totally ritualized. This is a great place for a Gatha. She's like, oh, I didn't even think about that. And another person had a garden, like they garden and work for the metro parks.
Yeah.
And like, man, what another great place for a Gatha. And then last but not least, this kind of realization of usually when we do gathas, it's like, oh, there's a Zen master, he's going to give a talk, let's set up the space and do a gatha. But it's like, what about my life? Like, I'm about to feed myself. Like, why have I not done this? Why have I not done a gatha before I take a shower? Like, why do I not? I don't know. There's kind of this imagery of play, like gatha on starting the shower and then like opening the shower curtain.
That's the spirit, Fuzan. That's the spirit. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, like, we interact in a couple of different venues, you and I. We practice Aikido together, right? We practice the Dharma together, and you see, when you come to sesshin, everything is very, very ritualized. Everything is very formalized, You don't just kind of randomly bandy about the Zendo. No, you don't. It's exactly this way, And then session is over, then you leave that and you go back to daily life. Okay. And then now what's happening is now we're in a situation where daily life really needs to draw on the strength and the sustenance of the sesshin experience. And it perfectly plops right on top of the situation we're in. You have to amend it a little bit. Be flowing, be structured. There's a gradation. We've talked about this at length, the difference between Sabbath and home retreat. But the intelligence of it, like, you take the thing and you make the offering and, all beings, I'll chant this thing because that's what they do here. Okay, I don't know why, but there it is, and you chant the thing. But see, it gets in your cells actually, and it teaches us how to bow. So the first thing is stop. The second thing is bow, right? And then it's respond. And so actually, if you just walk in and like throw the shower curtain open and get in there and turn the shower on and just go, your mind is already doing something. So what would it be like to stop and bow to the shower and just note that you're there, and then meaningfully consecrate the action, just as though you were priest making officiant for the Heart Sutra at my funeral. Okay, something like this. How would you do this? So you have that sacred mind, that intense mind, and you bring that to everyday life, see? Now, I'm not saying that for the rest of life, one always recites Gatha before doing everything. You could make a really funny Saturday Night Live parody over that, Gatha before taking a step, Gatha before taking a step, Gatha before taking a step. I mean, you would go crazy, right? So eventually, enough with that, just go ahead and take the shower. But you do it with the mind of sacredness. So these gathas are training wheels, basically, and any moment of life is a sacred moment. Every moment of life is an encounter with absolute reality, therefore worthy of complete veneration, right? So use it, take this time that we're all sort of like is thrust upon us and use it as training, use it as deep Dharma practice, so that when it goes away, we can take the spiritual growth from this into the renewed world, not just gut it out, eat as much ice cream as possible, and then finally emerge and go about your business. Good. Next.
So we've got 3 left. Kinko, you are next, and then Zuiho, and then Yugen. Kinko, you are unmuted.
Okay. Well, we talked about realizing how hyper contagious this whole virus is. It makes us realize how physically connected the whole human race is, for one thing. And we came up each with our own little gatha, so I will read our gathas. The first one is, as I enter Walmart, I vow to keep my distance for the sake of those around me and for myself and for all sentient beings on the planet. And let's see, our second one. Okay. I will wake with purpose to care for myself wisely, so that I may care for all others suffering around me. And then the third one was, As I find my time freed from imposed structure, I vow to use my time to bring more internal order to my life for the sake of nurturing my relationships with all of those I meet.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
Those
beautiful.
are,
That's
and,
great.
and then, well, as I was listening to everybody, I came up with an idea for a Gatha on spreading the virus of happiness. It's so easy to spread a virus. Our virus that we want to spread actually is one of happiness to all sentient beings on the earth. So maybe we can think of it that it's not that difficult to spread it.
Well, you know, the fact is that human beings make up a system, right? And the system itself interacts. Like all the trees in a forest, they actually interact.
Right.
And so, you know, we think of it as a meme, or we talk about it as a meme, but ideas spread. So for example, the idea that, oh, this only affects really old people with asthma and comorbidities, and young people are immune to it, that's a virus or a meme. It's a thought form, and that travels around and spreads, see? Just the same way that actually practicing social distancing and washing hands is the right move here. That's a meme that can spread around, right? So ideas and thoughts catch, for better and worse, right? So Buddha, if you think about it, pushed this Dharma. He discovered the Dharma and began sharing it. And it's actually traveled for thousands of years, century after century after century, culture after culture after culture. And this Dharma has seen plague, famine, war, pestilence. It's seen everything, you know, nuclear bombs, everything so far, right? Maybe not aliens and UFOs yet, but it is, the Dharma has continued to move. And this is what we call transmission. We transmit the Dharma. The Dharma transmits from one generation to the next, see? And this is exactly what's happening in this very moment right now. Right now, we are all encountering the Dharma as the lineage has brought it to us, and we're digesting it and integrating it and sharing it. And then we need to practice that Dharma and make that Dharma real in this time, in this COVID-19 time. I didn't see that coming, but nonetheless, boom, this is the time we're in. So if we practice beautifully and well with grace and with dignity and with honesty, which includes ungraceful and non-dignity, we practice honestly, then we are actually participating in the spreading of this Dharma throughout space and time. So let's stay with it.
Weho, you are sharing, you are unmuted.
Excellent. Hello, everyone. We had a great group discussion. A lot of the things that have already been discussed came up for us too, but a couple of things that stood out. Kelly is dealing with a chronic illness, so all of these things that we are struggling to learn has been her practice for a long time. And for her, cleaning is a vital practice, you know, those high touch areas and making sure that we follow up. Which I thought was an interesting point. And for her, the schedule and the structure of cleaning has always been really important. And so having her family home and sort of interrupting that has been a bit of a struggle. So what we're used to doing is being interrupted by the closeness of people that may not have always been there constantly before. So I thought that was interesting. And Eric talked about, and Rinsen, you might also have this, the difficulty of online instruction with students. And when you have that broken connection, when you're used to being there physically and you can interpret stuff and sort of sense things and just your presence can be more comforting, the frustration of distance, especially for young people or trying to help young people, can be very difficult. We also noted that virtual space actually forces us to communicate more. So like when we're in the temple and we're all sitting, we can sit there quietly, but when we're here virtually, it just forces us to pay more attention and to do more to communicate. And one last thing, I was sort of thinking about this, that for a lot of young people who are very in the moment and have trouble foreseeing a different time and being through this and how are we going to get through it, they get really stuck. So it's almost like they're in the moment in maybe a negative way and unable to get past it. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but so that's kind of what we came up with, that it's different.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one thing about that is that those of us who are not 19, who have passed that marker, you know, we can provide some assurance, you know. I mean, you know, the fact is none of us in living memory can hearken back to the 1918 Spanish flu. I don't think any of us are still around from that time. But, you know, we saw the stock market crash in '87. We saw the 9/11. We saw the recession. We saw the dot-com bust. We saw the space shuttle blow up. I mean, some people saw Kennedy be assassinated. The shit has gone down, okay? And you know what? Things actually will continue, you know? And so I think it's incumbent upon us that are elder, that are not quite as young as that, to contribute some sense of, look, you know, you're tougher than you think. You know, I think a wide lens on history at this moment is particularly useful. You know, if you really tune into how much has gone underneath the belt of the Homo sapien, how much water has gone under the bridge. For 150,000 years have we withstood all manner of crap, you know, and on scale, this is inconvenient. And some of us it'll be severe, some of us it'll be critical, some of us it'll be fatal. But on the grand scale, we're going to make it through this thing, see, by all accounts, you know. So I think it's important for us, you know, those of us that are not 19, you know, I'm of the last generation, I think, to grow up without internet. I mean, the internet was not a thing all the way through high school. It was somewhere in my college, undergrad, graduate years that the internet actually happened. Computers were not a requirement at all when I entered grad school. You know what I mean? So technology and I always have a fitful relationship. You know, we're kind of getting used to each other a little bit, but it's never going to be like somebody who grew up with it, for better and for worse, you know. So the struggle with internet and technology, it's real. I feel it, you know. It's very, this kind of teaching for me personally is very draining compared to when we're in person, because when we're in person, I can look at your eyes, and when my eyes are in the same room as yours, I get information that I kind of don't get here, you know. There's not the exchange. It's approximal, but there's not the energetic exchange, and so it's much more depleting for me. And so one thing I'm having to do is I'm just having to be honest about what my capacity actually is in this situation, you know. It's more draining, you know. Being in the room doing a guitar lesson is like one thing, and trying to do a guitar lesson through screens is exhausting. It can happen maybe, but boy, that's tough. So our best answer is to say we don't have all the answers, and to stick with working with it and notice what actually is honest, what actually is so, what actually is true. And then those of us who've been around a while, you know, I find it particularly encouraging to tell some of the younger folks about weirdnesses that have come and gone. I mean, you know, my parents lived under the threat of nuclear annihilation in the Cold War. Like, that was a real thing. Mm-hmm. Like, they spent years in grade school learning how to hide under the desk because the Reds were going to nuke us. It's easy for us to just dismiss that and forget it. That was a real thing. You know what I'm saying? Can you imagine that? So we don't have that worry. Now we've got this one. And when this one goes away, don't worry, another one will come. But you'll always have a chance for Dharma practice, you see. So whatever the ingredients of the life are at this given moment, use it and use it well. It just happens to be this one right now. Thank you.
All right, Eugen, I think this is the last group, and if we miss somebody, you'll just have to message me.
what was sort of interesting for us is that for all three of the people in our group, the places that mindfulness practice seems to be coming up for us in a very useful and grounding way are not sort of the newer practices that we've been forced to take on, the hand washing, the social distancing, but the things that we normally do anyways that are now much more grounded in mindfulness for us. So Anken talked about doing a Gatha over morning coffee and when she takes her instrument out of her case to play it. For me, mindfulness has really shown up a lot in just preparing food, meals for the family. Something else that was interesting that came up is that Kiju is still working outside the home and is preparing food in a carry-out environment. We talked a little about the opportunity to use that as bodhisattva practice and the possibility of approaching that as, oh, I'm going out and doing this practice to nourish others. So those are the things that really struck me that came up in our group conversation.
Yeah, I mean, one thing there for all of us who are preparing food, it's and we spoke about this at some length on the last Saturday's members retreat thing, but the mind with which you prepare the food is very important. It's very, very important that you do everything you can to have a mind that is not filled with anxiety and stress and concern and worry as you make the food. Very important that your mind is filled at least with presence, ideally with beneficial qualities. If you can have the mind have quality of compassion and kindness and goodwill and blessing, and if you bless the food as you prepare it, actually the magic is that is a more nourishing experience for the person, whether they know it's happening or not. This is irrelevant to the point. So very important for all of us as we prepare food that we have the mind of practice with it. Beautiful.
All righty, welcome back, everyone. So next up, we are going to start with our compassion teachings.
Okay. We ready to go?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Wonderful. There we are. Okay. First of all, it's so lovely to see everyone on the screen. You actually look a lot like the newscasters. Have you noticed that all these newscasters are like in their own little cubby holes and they're trying to make their backgrounds look as much as it can like the newsroom or something? So this is actually really wonderful. Actually, Rinsen and I have been enjoying watching all the different newscasters and looking at their little their dens, their news dens, and we've also been enjoying looking at everyone's Zen den that they're coming live from. So this compassion piece is pretty.
The video.
Oh, compassion video. Yeah, here we go.
We have I saw this video clip of His Holiness the Dalai Lama giving some teachings, and I would like everybody to pay attention to this together. If our tech, Jisha, can go ahead and play the video, please.
Dear brothers and sisters, we all same human being. Different color, different race, different nationalities, different.
Technical difficulties.
Should we try again?
Yeah, let's try that again. 1 second. Okay, trying again. No sound, huh? Can you guys hear? Mm-mm. I think we're gonna have to send the link around.
This is not the way we expected to do this, but try and pay attention to this. Okay, here we go.
Dear brothers and sisters, we all same human being. Different color, different race, different nationalities, different religion, doesn't matter. We all same human being. In fact, entire 6 billion human beings are same. Mentally, emotionally, physically, same. Now today's reality, your livelihood very much depends on other continent. We have to think the well-being of entire humanity. So a sense of global responsibility come only through sense of concern of well-being of other. So therefore, the sense of compassion or sense of concern of other is a key factor to bring real peace, real happy world.
Okay.
I have to address something.
All right. Are we good?
Yeah.
Okay. So that is, you know, a beautiful sentiment from the Dalai Lama. And in fact, he's actually, well, let's back up just for a second. Let's back up. So compassion. Remember that compassion is relieving the suffering of oneself, of ourself, and others. It is one of the 2 wings of awakening, one of the 2 wings of enlightenment, one of the 2 wings of Buddhahood. So the one wing is the compassion wing. The other wing is the wisdom wing. So compassion training is absolutely central and right at the heart of what we do as Buddhist practitioners, as Dharma practitioners. And as Roshi was saying, that this is the time to do a really good job with our practice. And this pause that we're in is so perfect because we get to actually watch our minds. Instead of just having to go from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, we actually get to take that pause because we're not under all this social pressure, being having to go to work and this, that, and the other thing. So this is like an incredible opportunity for us as bodhisattvas to really dig into what is compassion practice. Now, the main, let's go to the root and to the heart of it, is to change our own hearts and our own minds, how we receive information, how we process the information, and how we respond to the information. Now, this happens no matter what. First is how we wield our minds, right? And we can do this anywhere, anytime, with any condition. Now, we could say, oh, but I can't really practice the kind of compassion I want to because I can't go outside and help so-and-so. Because now if I go outside, I'm actually causing more harm because I could be spreading the virus or so forth and so on. This is true, but this does not in any way stop us from doing more mind training with compassion, how to deepen our compassionate heart, how to grow our compassionate heart. And So the Dalai Lama, the first point of really practicing compassion, and there are steps to practicing compassion. And this first point is equanimity, seeing everyone as the same, seeing everyone as our brother and our sister. So I think when we're looking at images, particularly on the screen, I think I'm mostly going to talk about the media, because that seems to be a place that we're all sharing in common right now, and we're all having a lot of feelings about that. So I think it's really easy when we see images on the screen of people in the hospital suffering, or if we see people on the doctors, the EMTs, any kind of images of people helping others, giving of themselves. It's very easy to see, oh, that is like a compassionate action, and feeling like you want to amplify that, feeling gratitude for that. Please continue to do this. Anytime we see a compassionate act in the media, or as in our feeds, or however we're digesting information right now, to just take a moment and let that spread throughout space and time. Let that be the cause of everyone's enlightenment. Let that heal everyone. The second point about compassion, actually training our mind, and this is so important, is to see the kindness of everyone's activity. Now, how do we see the kindness of someone who's saying something on the media or on the internet that is blatantly wrong, right? And it's causing so much harm, and it's immediately getting our shackles up? Where is the kindness in that? This is where it gets a little tricky, but we can do this. We can do this, and it's really important for our hearts to be able to handle this kind of difficulty. The first thing is to really appreciate that people act in very unexpected ways. Seriously. And the people that we rely on the most, our government officials and so forth and so on, can make huge mistakes. Okay? They don't do things that we think they should be doing. And that's normal, right? That is actually how life is. The second point is to notice, okay, that when we are feeling so angry because they've just made a stupid point, or for instance, it's not time to go back to stop the mitigations of social distancing and so forth, and we get very angry thinking, how could a government official think that we should stop social distancing just to keep the economy going, or so forth and so on. That anger that we're feeling is actually a signal to us to go deeper into our compassionate heart. Because at that moment, we're recognizing the suffering and the humanity of the person delivering the message. We're recognizing it's called benightedness, the delusion, the confusion, the lack of clarity, whatever, of this person delivering this message. Now, as a bodhisattva, the light bulb goes right on. Oh, suffering, yes, yes, yes. So you gave me information that I'm not expecting, that was kind of wrong and doesn't fit anywhere near with my own value system. But I can recognize that you're suffering. And then as a bodhisattva, we know exactly what to do. As soon as we feel that suffering moment in the other person or in ourselves. We're having to be subjected to that information coming in. We can extend love. We can extend compassion. We can extend wishing the relief of that suffering, wishing that that person would be clearer, have clearer knowledge of the facts. We do not need to perpetuate anger in this moment. We do not have the luxury of indulging in anger in this moment. This is the Bodhisattva's ultimate moment of truth, really. When we can use all the ingredients of mistake and confusion and delusion and benightedness and groundlessness and all of these things that cause so much anxiety to immediately activate our wish and our desire to relieve the suffering. So maybe that's enough.
That's good.
That's good. Okay.
So now we're going to have Shokai give a teaching, a guided meditation on metta practice. Shokai, if you would please.
So I think you can hear me. I hope you can hear me. Okay, good. So I'm sure many of you have already done metta practice. We're going to really follow the classic form today. So, but please feel free to adapt this practice to whatever speaks to you. So it's a very ancient technology, goes back to the time of the Buddha. We know that from the Pali Canon. And how has such a technology lasted for 2,600 years? And how can it speak so clearly to us today? So clearly it speaks to authenticity, right? As everything about our practice does. So what are we doing? So metta is loving kindness, right? It's the first of the four immeasurables, the great factors of awakening. And when we recite the daily home liturgy, how we express that is the wish for happiness. May all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness, right? So in this work on metta, in wishing loving kindness for all beings, our great ally is that wish for happiness. Because as you know, it can be difficult sometimes to see the good in ourselves, to see the good in others. But it's not difficult to connect with that wish for happiness because it is so intrinsic to our true nature. And just as I wish happiness for myself, so do all beings wish happiness for themselves. This is common to our true nature. So what we're really doing here is connecting. We're breaking down the barriers between self and other, and we're also breaking down the barriers within ourselves. So I have to say, when I first came to metta practice, I thought it was early in my practice and I was very much focused on wisdom. And I thought, well, metta will be a nice sideline, but of course, it's a lot more than that. Because in wisdom practice, what you're doing is you're seeing through the illusion of separateness, right? In metta practice, you're down in the mud of your life doing that work. You're actually eroding the barriers in this body, with this personality, with these people in this life. So that is what we're working on here, is actually meeting these barriers with authenticity. So how do we do it? In the classic format, you deal with different categories of beings. So you start with categories of beings where it's not difficult to feel the wish for happiness for them, a beloved, a benefactor. And then we move on to categories of beings where loving kindness might not automatically arise, might not fill our hearts. So we're working on this dividing line, which of course does not exist, right? This line between finite and infinite love, between where unconditional love flowers in, where conditional love flowers into unconditional love. So what we're doing, of course, is what Roshi was talking about earlier, equanimity practice. We're we're getting in touch with this wish for loving kindness, this wish for happiness for all beings, and seeing that it is not dependent on likes or dislikes, right? Just like the sun shines down on all things equally without discrimination, so love has no boundaries. It shines down on all beings. And what we're doing is the actual work of realizing that in our lives. So just as a precautionary note, what we're not doing is we're not manufacturing any emotions. I have to say, when I started with Metta, I was very afraid that it would be a feel-good, hallmark, mushy practice. And it is as far away from that as you can get. What we're actually doing is authentically meeting the barriers to love that we encounter. So this is not for the faint of heart. And you'll see throughout this practice, every parallel to Zazen, right? This is total cross training with Zazen because, of course, we're meeting our authentic selves and we're not turning away when the going gets difficult. The other thing I would say is the importance of intention in this practice. So you'll feel a lot of different emotional tones as we work through the categories of beings, and that means you're doing the work, right? But less important than the emotional tones is the working with intention. The image is used of being out in a field and sowing seeds. And that's what we're doing. We're sowing the seeds of intention in the mind to wish all beings happiness, to wish all beings loving kindness. And of course, in our Zen way, which we always express, we're not that tied to the results, right? Those seeds will flower in their own good time, maybe not in this lifetime. What we're concerned with is actually doing the work. So, so let's start. So let's assume a meditative posture. You all know how to do that, right? Let's come into our bodies. Feel your feet on the ground, your legs. Feel your butt on the cushion. Feel that point of contact right there, grounding you. Your torso, strong back, open front. Shoulders, arms, let whatever tension there is just drop into the ground. And bring your awareness to your hands, to your fingers. Relax the muscles around the eyes. Unlock the jaw. Now, in the classical format, we work with 4 phrases. And classically, the first one is, may I be free from danger. May I be safe. And this speaks to being free from mental torment and to being free from physical violence. The second one, may I have physical happiness. May I be safe. May I be free from pain. And where I can't be free from pain, may I meet pain with patience, with acceptance, so that physical pain does not translate into mental anxiety. The third one is, may I be peaceful, may I have mental health. And in meeting ourselves and all beings in this commonality of the wish for happiness, of loving kindness, we are of course speaking to our true natures, which is where we find peace. And may I be at ease. And this speaks to our everyday life, to relating to myself, to relating to the people I live with very much in these days, to my work, to all the activities of life. May they not be a struggle. That's what we're speaking to. So we're going to start working through the categories. Traditionally, we start with the self. And I do realize this practice came to be in a culture where there was not this permeating feeling of self-denigration that we feel in the West. So please be very kind to yourself as we start with this wish for happiness for ourselves. If loving kindness doesn't just automatically jump into your heart when you think of yourself, welcome to the club. So there's ways of working with this. We can think of an action of words we've put out into the world that have done good. Maybe a kind word. Maybe you just listened to someone vent. Maybe you shared your practice, as many of you have been doing so beautifully online over the last couple of weeks. You can also think of a quality in yourself, perhaps kindness. Perhaps you can make people laugh. Some quality that brings joy to the world. You can also think of a circumstance. In this practice, you're not bound to time and space. So you can think of yourself as a child, perhaps. For some inexplicable reason this last week, when I do this practice, I think of myself like as a 9-year-old in my backyard in Dublin on a Saturday afternoon, just pottering around in the yard. I have no idea why that is coming up, but whatever comes up for you, just embrace it. And if none of these things work, you always come back to that wish for happiness, this intimate wish that we all have. And then we open our hearts. We open our hearts to the intention for the wish for happiness for ourselves. And we at our own pace say the phrases. May I be safe. May I be well. May I be peaceful. May I be at ease. May I be happy. Say them at whatever pace is meaningful for you, and you can adapt them however speaks to you. This is a very personal practice. If you find yourself distracted or you find resistance coming up, just acknowledge that. If it's very sticky, just acknowledge an old friend arising. And when it feels skillful to you, you come back to the phrase. And so in Zazen, we come back to the phrase, to the breath. In Metta practice, we come back to the phrase. May I be safe. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be happy. So usually I would spend more time on each category, but time passes swiftly by. So we will move on to the second category of being, which is the benefactor. Somebody who has done well by us, someone to whom we feel gratitude, we feel respect. It can be a being known personally to us. It can be someone out there in the world doing good. And we bring that person, visualize that person very specifically. You can say their name if you like. And connect with the quality of their goodness, of the goodness they put out into the world, of their generosity. And then we will bathe this being in loving kindness and the wish for happiness. May they be safe. May they be well. May they be peaceful. May they be at ease. May they be happy. If you find distraction or difficulty arising, connect back to that person. Connect to the phrase. And remember, this is a practice of intentionality, of sowing the seeds of the wish for happiness for this being. And now we move on to a being who is beloved to us, for whom we perhaps feel unconditional love. It can be a human, it can be someone living or dead, it can be a beloved pet, it can be someone who puts beautiful music out into the world, whatever being you choose, whatever brings joy into your heart. Visualize that being. Say their name if you like. Connect to that feeling of love, of open-heartedness that being inspires in you. May they be safe. May they be well. May they be peaceful. May they be at ease. May they be happy. And if at any time during this meditation you are feeling overwhelmed in any way, you can always dip back into the feeling for this being. You can go back and forth between categories. This is skillful for you. So now we're going to go on to a more difficult category of being, to beings who traditionally are called neutrals, right? Beings that we really don't know. Perhaps we pass by them in the street. Perhaps they serve us coffee. Perhaps someone we pass by in the hallway at work, but we really don't know their story. We don't know anything about them. And the barrier to this practice with this being is perhaps boredom or indifference. So we're going to pick a specific being. And throughout the years I've done this practice, I've worked with different beings. And my latest one is a custodian in the building next to the building where I work. And I cut through there when the weather is bad, when I'm going to the other side of campus. And he is this old, doddering man who just works so slowly, should have probably retired years ago. I know nothing about him. And yet, over the past few weeks doing this practice and bringing him into my awareness, bathing him in loving kindness, when I see him, I feel that open-heartedness. And I don't feel it's through any effort of mine. I feel it's just the practice. And I'm sure he doesn't know. He probably thinks I'm just that goofy woman who smiles. But for me, the practice is just opening my heart. So see if you can find a neutral being and bring them into your awareness. Visualize them. Well, you can't say their name because you might not know that. And then for this being, we wish happiness. May this being be safe. May they be well. May they be peaceful. May they be at ease. May they be happy. If difficulty arises, if you feel indifference, dip back into the feeling of love for that being you love unconditionally, or for your benefactor. Feel your heart open and eventually come back to the neutral being. And now we're going to move on to, and I would normally go a lot slower, so please don't rush through it like this at home. So now we come to a difficult person. And the recommendation is not to choose your mortal enemy here. Choose someone who is difficult, someone who is mildly irritating, someone you might cross the road when you see them coming. And bring this being into your heart. Visualize them, say their name. I, for many years, used this practice with a coworker, a woman who was very rigid, very cold, very difficult to work with. But she loved her cat. And I found this was a really useful technique, was to find something about this being, some redeeming feature about this being. And the only time she would open up to us was when she was talking about her cat. And I haven't seen this woman in years. And still when I think of her, I think about her talking about her cat with such love. So clearly, even within this heart of not being able to share with other people, where's that seed of love? So see if you can perhaps find this redeeming feature about the person you have chosen. And I would caution here that, if you're dealing with a being who's done you wrong, we're not, as Roshi always says, we're not making ourselves the doormats here. We're not justifying any actions. If anything here, we're separating the person from the action. And of course, in Buddhism, we're not really concerned with judgment, with right or wrong. What we're concerned with is suffering. When I think of that woman, I think of the suffering that must be in her life to be so isolated. So let's bring that being into the heart of loving kindness. May they be safe. May they be well. May they be peaceful. May they be at ease. May they be happy. And again, if difficulty arises, dip back into that feeling for the benefactor, the feeling for the being you love unconditionally. And when you're ready, come back to that difficult being. And now let's extend the heart of loving kindness even further to all beings. And a recommended technique in doing this is to look at beings in terms of groups, so we can really expand love. So we can look at beings in terms of beings that are known to me, beings that are unknown to me, beings that are near, beings that are far, beings that are being born, beings that are dying, beings that are in existence, beings that have yet to come into existence. And in working with these categories, we notice that we're more resistant to the feeling of love for certain categories than others. And that's a good thing to notice that, because that's what we're working on, that barrier. So because we don't have a lot of time, let's go with beings everywhere. So let's start with all of us here in this virtual Zendo. May we all be happy. May we all be safe. May we all be peaceful. May we all be at ease. And then let's extend it out to our families, to our loved ones, to our neighbors, to our communities, to our cities, our states, our provinces. May all of these beings be safe. May they be well. May they be peaceful. May they be at ease. May they be happy. And then out further to all beings in our country, to all beings in Canada, to all beings in North America, all beings in Central and South America, all beings in Europe, in the Middle East, in Asia, in Africa, in India, in China, in Korea, in Japan, all beings in Australia, New Zealand, the Arctic, the Antarctic, to all beings on this beautiful planet. May all of them be safe. May they be well. May they be peaceful. May they be at ease. May they be happy. And now let's extend it out further. Let's extend it out through the galaxies, out beyond the furthest stars, to all beings throughout space and time. May all beings be safe. May all beings be well. May all beings be peaceful and at ease. May all beings be happy. So thank you for your practice, everyone. And we go back to the teachers, I believe.
Thank you so much for the beautiful guided meditation and practice with Metta. I'm greatly nourished by your guidance there. And it's a very serious practice, this cultivating the mind of kindness, this cultivating the mind of generosity. So it's integral to the way a bodhisattva combusts their life. And it's not an abstract thing, folks. This is not some fairy tale for another day. It's for right now. It's for this time. It's for this place. It's with these people in this day. Let us have the Dharma flourish. Let our practice be strong. And really, let's live out of and into our vows. I want to thank you all for making time to be here today. It's a delight to practice and to connect. And I think Suise has a few announcements before we do our concluding moment together.
Hi, Sangha. I think I've got unpinned. Let's see. Can you see me? Okay, cool. All right, so thank you all for being here today. A couple announcements. Later, we'll have the video of this. We'll have the video with the full Q&A for members. We might edit some parts out for the public. And we'll have links to a transcript of this. We've got a file going where you can add your gathas, and we'll put all that into our Ango guide. So look out for that information tonight and tomorrow. And then a week from today, same time, 2 o'clock, we're going to get members together for some more teachings. Again, that'll be 2 to 4. We're going to work on refining the Ango teachings and maybe a little bit more Buddhist magic. It won't be for the public. Again, that'll be a private group thing with more time for check-in and getting together 2 to 4 next Saturday. Those are our big announcements. All right.
All right, everybody, if I could see a gassho. Let me respectfully remind you, life and death are of supreme importance. Time swiftly passes by and opportunity is lost. Each of us should strive to awaken, take heed. Do not squander your life. All right, thank you, everybody. Much love and much practice. Thank you very much, everybody, for supporting the Sangha during this time, too. It's great. See you next time.